They told us to give a disclaimer. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the podcasters, any guests, and do not reflect any of the management, owners, sponsorships, or employees of thereof. Pretty much, if you're soft, don't listen to this podcast.
One thing I pride myself on is just being the same and trying to look out for my folks along the way.
Like, even with all these, big things happening, like, you still mad humble, and you still, like, you have enough clout now where you could easily be like, I'm not fucking with this, I'm not fucking with that.
Oh yeah, motherfuckers, it's on. Unrestricted podcast listeners, thank you so much for clicking play. Because of you, those numbers are going up, up, and up. It is the holiday season, so if you want to get your loved one, maybe your kiddo, a nice hoodie, a nice t-shirt, and you want to support the podcast monetarily, go on to allrock.com. That's ALLRAWK.com. Go buy a hoodie. It's freezing here in Salt Lake City, so go support. If you don't want to make a monetary donation, I understand it's hard out here right now. You can do it by showing love. You can like, comment, share, subscribe. All of that stuff is free to do. All right. Now, today I got a very special guest across from me. Somebody that I met, about 2 months ago in person. The owner, operator of Western Auto Care and radiator specialist in Ogden City. I got my man Jake in the building.
Hey, what's happening, guys?
Now, I just know you as Jake.
Right. Yep.
Is that how you go by? Do you want to throw the last name out there or just no?
Yeah, Jake okay. Bass. It's fine.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, when I first heard about you, obviously you took care of my car, right? And we have a mutual friend that it's one of your employees.
Yep.
And when I met you, you took me through your whole shop. You showed me the ins and outs of your operation. You told me that you guys are very, you're a specialist in one. I keep on one ADOS, yes. ADOS system. Yep. And you were telling me about this, how this room needed to be specifically modified for what you guys do.
Correct. Yep.
And then on top of that, you're a pilot.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So I want to start off from the very beginning. Obviously, I want to talk a little bit more about what your endeavors, but are you from Utah?
I am, yeah. From Ogden, Utah.
Born and raised Ogden City.
Yes, sir.
All right. How was life growing up in Ogden City? Small town.
Right. We used to, no problem. It was fun. I mean, we grew up, 90s and teenager, 20s by the time 2000s hit. So
yeah, it
was all that pre-cell phone stuff. So it was a lot more fun, I think, back in the day. We got to roll around in our vehicles and disappear and come back when dinner was ready kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
that was the times, right? Like, just I feel like once we got more technology, it made our lives a lot easier, but it also made it a little bit a challenge too.
Oh, yeah. I could not believe when everybody got cell phones. I think it was senior year in high school that some of my friends were starting to get them. They had 300 minutes for the entire month, could only call them after 9 o'clock or on the weekends.
Yeah.
And they kept asking me, man, why, Jake, you need to get a phone. We can't get a hold of you because my brother and sister were always on the dial-up internet. So you guys know my mom, right? It's like, what, your moms can get a hold of you anytime you want when you get a cell phone. And then now it's the standard,
Oh, yeah.
If you don't answer the phone when your mom or dad call, I'm still that way, Mom. You call, I'm answering. And then
pull that mic right up to you.
Absolutely.
Get up right up on the thing. Okay, cool. So definitely, as a father myself, my son still doesn't answer my calls. And it's funny how things have changed, even with the cell phone. You talk about data usage. Now they give away free phones. Like, you can go, anybody in the United States can have a phone, government issued, free minutes, call anybody anytime, any day, anywhere.
Yep.
But back in the day, we used to have quarters in our pockets.
Oh, yeah, and you utilize that collect call.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to be picked up. I mean, your mom would get the message, your dad get the message. They knew where you were at. They dropped you off the movies or something, and they'd get that, will you accept a collect call from ready to be picked up? And then you didn't have to, when you ran out of quarters, you were still good.
Did you ever have the Bell West pager? Did you ever jump the pager route?
I did, but I was already too late on the system, and everybody was using the cell phone. So
gotcha.
Yeah, I was like, no reason to carry that thing around. So
have you always been a car guy?
Always. Yep. Grew up with it. My dad was a car guy. My grandpa's a car guy. So everybody in our family, my uncle, just group of car guys. They each have their own cars. They build almost all the time. My uncle, my dad are into Mustangs, and My dad's doing a 64 Econoline too right now with my nephews, and
Wow.
yeah, pretty fun.
What was it? Just your uncles, your relatives were doing it, and so you just kind of fell in line with the loving cars?
I grew up going to car shows. You know, my dad didn't really ask to go do much. You know, as far as he was that guy that just went to work and coached and did everything for all of us. And the one thing that he liked to go do was car shows. So just went with the car shows, and you know, it was awesome. You know, that was back in the day when all the muscle cars were at the car shows, and everybody's doing the big blown motors out the hood, and you know, big exhaust pipes, and
all
just
the Hemis.
super loud, right? Yeah. If anybody knows where a 426 original Hemi is, give me a call. I got a 70 Cuda; it needs to live inside. So
My dream car, and my dream car kind of changes, right?
Yep.
And it has to do with movies that I watch. And I don't know if you remember the original, the first Bad Boys movie with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. There was a Porsche 911 that this man had, and he was driving down the tarmac on it. That, for a long time, was my dream car. Now that has changed. My dream car right now is a Ford Mustang 5.0.
nice. Which year? Fox body?
Like in 95.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I had a neighbor just down the street that just sold one.
Really?
Yep. A convertible. Really great condition. Yeah. And she ended up having to sell it, but
You can find them. Like I follow a lot of vintage car auctions and things like. They're not expensive. Like you can find one for like $5,000. But now fixing it up, that's the different part. You know.
that's the part people don't really understand. I call it a rabbit hole. You know, you get to pick up an old car that's your dream car, and you set it up like, yes, I want that one. All right, excellent. Well, let's take it somewhere. Well, we're all familiar with the movie personalities, especially ones here in Salt Lake that are TV personalities that do a really great job. But to get on their list, you got to have quite the deposit, and you got to wait a long time. And that's really the case with most restoration shops is you're waiting, and then what do you want to do with your car once you got it? Oh, okay, well, I just want a paint job. Well, just a paint job? Yeah. Like Mako style? Yeah, and a lot of car restoration shops aren't going to touch that. They want to take it down. They don't want to paint over rust or dents or anything.
Yeah.
And so the standard because of the TV shows have raised the bar on what level you have to, you feel you need to bring that to drive it again. And so it's not uncommon for people to be $25,000, $35,000 just into the sheet metal work. And that's, you know, a decent starting point. So I had a buddy that he brought his in because it cracked. His bodywork cracked, and he just got it painted 7 years or about 2-3 years before. Picked up a 67 Camaro, great shape, looked great shape. By the time he got the engine and he was just revving on it, and just the torque from the engine and everything, it just cracked right there on the quarter panel area. Indication of some heavier Bondo, or the paint that didn't stick, and it turned out the paint did not bond to the primer. And so he had to go all the way back to the bottom. And then the decision was, well, how far do I go? Well, how far do you want to go? And before we knew it, I think he'd spent almost $100,000
Oh my goodness.
on it. But it's a killer car now.
Yeah.
Does
it have more value in now?
It depends on what you do. Some guys, you really got to push for starting right. You can go right back to basic. Cheapest, fastest way is to start and just stay right with the OEM suspension, OEM parts if you can find them, or some of the aftermarket parts that just bolt in, because I call it a ripple effect. Anytime you change one thing or customize one thing, you're going to have, maybe 5 to 10 little things down the road that just aren't going to fit like they were supposed to fit, and that costs time and money to get that somebody else to figure it out, or for you to figure it out.
Yeah.
So he put a Roadster Shop frame on it, which, that's comes with a nice little price tag, but that raises the value because now you're starting from the frame up. Suspension's all nice and modern, and it's going to drive like a more modern muscle car. And you could take that thing to Vegas if you wanted to. Ended up putting an LS3 in it, pumped it up to 500 plus horsepower, and
Sheesh.
he literally can just hop in it, turn the keys, and go. Drive it like a modern Mustang or a modern Camaro, and it's a pretty cool way to go.
You've obviously had decades of loving cars, right? Working on cars and everything like that. How has the car culture changed from where you first fell in love with cars to where we are in 2024?
It's kind of a fun evolution, right? We started off with everybody purists, and the Mustang guys are really good purists still. They still like, that's a 68 Camaro. Hey, that interior didn't come in, 68 Mustang. That was a 67 Mustang interior you've got in there. They can tell by just the pleating or, the different textures that came into it, right?
Yeah.
And good for them. But that industry is kind of different in each, make and model that people like. A lot of times the Chevy guys, they have a lot of engine choices that they can stay within the GM family. They can go the 350, the 383, and now recently they're going to the LS conversion. And it's nice. You can go to a junkyard, pull an LS. There's two different types of conversions. There's the poor man's LS, which deemed the poor man's LS. It's not me. It's just the verbiage. Yeah. But you go to a junkyard, you pull out an LS, and you can, from an old car or truck, and not older, but early 2000s, and you can put that right in your stock car, and maybe put a 4L60 or 4L80 in it. Excuse me.
You good?
And you can be up and running for the same cost that it would take you to build a 500 horsepower small block. But now you have a modern engine. You can go get those parts, and you can build that up. And you have that much more of a area to move. Ford, I think they tried to do that with their 7.3 Godzilla, and their what else did they have? I think they had a drop-in Coyote motor they were trying to push, but the LS is just a super common motor that you can go get just from a car or KSL or Craigslist, wherever you guys are at, and just find one and try to start playing with it. There's lots of YouTube channels of guys just pulling them out, putting a turbo on it and seeing how far they can go without doing anything to the engine. And, go race it and go have some fun with it, blow it up, pull it out, go find another one.
Yeah.
Now, because of that, the $300 engines are gone. And now we're looking at, $1,500, $2,000 for a base pole to get started with. But
we, in 2024, I always hear the word like computer cars, right? Your electric vehicles, more cars having more technology in it. Do you think that this is a good thing, or do you think that this is more of a challenge?
I think it's like anything. Anytime we get technology into it, it depends on really, we're always giving up safety or security for freedom in such a way. If you want to look at the freedom of what you're giving up, ADAS is a prime example. ADAS stands for Advanced Driver Assistance Systems. And that's all the fun new stuff that's put into cars and started mostly the very beginning of more coming a commonality in baseline cars was probably around the 2013 area. You would see some different things. So that would be your lane detection, even headlights that turn with the steering wheel a little bit, your LiDAR, your radar, your ultrasonics, so all your blind spot, your parking sensors, your cameras, anything that helps you in a new technology age. But with that, they're all connected. So what we used to just worry about the mechanical and the brakes, now you're going to have issues with those systems that come up. They come out of calibrations. So you can literally get impacted on the rear end, in the rear, and that will throw your front radar or front camera out of calibration just from the forces.
Wow.
When you're replacing these things, if you just do not careful and you have just a little drop, everybody's just like dropping a bolt or a nut or a tool, that's done. I mean, the system, you can't guarantee that thing is not damaged in a way. So they do say that on their, do not drop because it's that sensitive. So when you do, now we're becoming connected, right? And the idea is that we're not to self-driving cars. People are thinking that with the Teslas, and when they first came out, it's self-driving. Well, yes and no, it has the ability to assist, but it doesn't take away your responsibility to drive the vehicle. So when we get going forward in this new ADAS era of cars, a level 5 car is a self-driving car without a steering wheel. A level 4 is a self-driving car with a steering wheel, which means you don't have to have your hands on the controls. You can, at that point, come off your hands off the steering wheel, and the car will do what it's supposed to do, and take you where it's supposed to go. But we're not there yet. And the level 1, 2, and 3s are what everybody pretty much has these days. So your hands have to be on the steering wheel. They have, sensors on the weight sensors on it. So if you set it up, and you can set it up to drive to point A or point B, and take your hands off the steering wheel, it will do lane centering really well. It will do lane departure really well, and it recognizes the cross traffic on the radars. You have such a calibration on those radar sensors, on the blind spots and the cross traffic and the cameras, and each manufacturer does it a little bit different to the point that it makes it very complicated for us. But it can get you there. But you pull those hands off the steering wheels, it's going to eventually turn itself off. Some cars will bring itself to a complete stop when you are doing that. If you're looking down on your phone, which I think is awesome, not that you're looking down on your phone, but the fact that you have a distracted driver, with the helicopter flying, and I do EMS, we go on crashes where people ran right into somebody at 55, 65 miles an hour.
Gosh.
This is, detrimental. Total, if you want to get a life, that's, not great chances of coming out of that with even deficits, right? But you add these sensors into it. This is why I'm kind of passionate about the ADAS now, once I've learned more about it, is that sensor, and depending on which car, will bring you either to a full stop, and then as that car in front of you goes, it will pick up and take you 5 more feet. Or it'll bring you to a 5-10 mile an hour speed, and then the system shuts down because it's assuming you're supposed to be doing your job, and then you put on the brake and take it the rest of the way. But even if you're that, what's the word I want to use without being completely insulting? Negligent. That's probably the legal sense of the word, right? So if you're being negligent, not even paying attention, and it kicks off at 10 miles an hour, and then you rear end somebody at 10 miles an hour, that's still a heck of a lot better than 55.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of that being in there. It's a fantastic way of saving us, right? The bad part is all those systems are connected. So somebody can do an update, change it, or the government can literally come in now and start shutting cars down.
Wow.
Remotely? Well, they could if they, all that technology's there because everything's interconnected. All these cars now have, not all of them, but a lot of the newer cars are coming up with self-downloads to upgrade the software in them. So,
oh my gosh.
Good and bad, right? Now, instead of having to take it to the dealer to get, or which, by the way, we can reprogram, but you used to have to take it to dealer for updates. Some cars would operate well, and then all of a sudden you'd have a hiccup, like, well, what's going on to it? You take it to a mechanic, or you try to play around with it, you can't figure it out, end up just being a software issue, as they found it just like a glitch with a computer. So then they do a software update. Runs perfect again. Nothing was really mechanically wrong with your car. Just the way the software ran. So your cars are operating smoother and better and faster and stronger and longer with less mechanical help, right? As far as we used to replace engines back in the day on the regular, 100,000 miles, used to look at a car and go, oh, it's done.
Yeah.
Now, 200,000-300,000 miles, you're kind of looking at it. Yeah, it's got high miles. And can I drive it for a little bit? Yeah, probably could, even at those miles.
It kind of concerns me, though, if the wrong software is updated, right? What happens if there is, what if we see some type of terrorist attack that's more digital on our vehicles?
Right. Did you see This Is the End with Julia Roberts? And
the Teslas?
Yep, is exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, so good and bad, right? They can turn those systems on, per the show, remotely activate them from the lot. Those were all dealer Teslas, and jam up a whole situation, or just turn them into bricks on the freeway.
Yeah. That terrifies me.
Well, that's the part, right? We give up we gain safety and security by giving up the ability for a little bit of freedom to drive the car how we want.
Yeah.
My grandpa was funny because I was telling him I was doing the ADOS stuff. He kind of looked at me. He starts laughing. He's just like, I just don't think there's a future in that. You know, I turn that stuff off. Who wants all that stuff? And it's kind of, and you're right. It's unique to, you know, and I wanted to look at him, and I didn't think about it at the time, but I started thinking about it. Well, who's these systems built for? And I like to drive. I like to be in control, but I fear for my kid. He's 11 years old. In 5 years, man, I want him in a car with all these systems on it.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to be just like any other kid. You know, how many more distractions are we going to add into the cockpit of the car? Mm-hmm. So, and with them, I think it's going to save lives, or, you know, give them a better chance for sure.
How many people do you think, because as you're talking about you were talking about the impact to the back of your car can really influence the front sensors and whatnot. How many accidents do they really go back and calibrate the front sensors?
So every OEM, every manufacturer has their own specifications for safety and for their safety systems, these ADAS systems. So, and it can be even specific to the vehicle. For instance, some Toyotas have a mandatory front radar calibration. If you get in a collision, front radar. But we have to look up each vehicle because the insurance has to pay for the safety, for that to be brought back. And it's a safety system. It's just like your brakes or anything else. It's a safety system. Has to be brought back to original condition or pre-accident condition. So we have to look up every vehicle and find it and go through the paperwork and go through the information. And yes, this one is required for the calibration for the rear end accident. And so it just depends. Some are, like a Subaru's the same way. They have those two cameras up there at the top. They call them an eyesight. They get in an impact, any impact, side, front, rear, have to be calibrated. So then they need to go to a shop like ours in Ogden, or there's one in Salt Lake called Car ADOS, which we're affiliated with, and also Car ADOS down in Provo area as well. So we do a really good job of trying to make sure that we do it right per the OEM manufactured specifications. Because if you don't, there's a liability there, right?
What is the liability? Is it just like if it fails, it's your fault?
So if it's required for your collision, for your vehicle is required to get the ADOS calibration done for any of those sensors, there is a certain liability that if you go get in an accident, and that, it's going to be the insurance guys, and it's really going to come to something completely detrimental. These lawsuits are already starting in some application or another back east a little bit more. Say like that same Subaru front eyesight that does the, looking ahead 200 feet on the lanes. It's trying to see who's braking, who's not. And it wasn't calibrated at all. It wasn't calibrated correctly because somebody just pushed a button, because you can calibrate to anything in a lot of ways, right? You can set it over, but it's got a 1 or 2 degree field of view that it's looking at 200 yards down the road. So if you're 1 degree off, you're looking in the other side lane pretty easy and early on. And so that car doesn't come into the field of view for that radar or eyesight or camera system to go recognize that there's a problem, because it's measuring 2 things. It's measuring where it's at, how far away it is, and how quick your closure rate is. So if it doesn't find it until it's too late, it's the same as if on its system, it's as if somebody just pulled right into the lane in front of you. Now it's too late. It's not going to be able to brake or help you brake or alert you to brake early enough for you to completely avoid the accident, right? So you get in that accident, something terrible happens or detrimental, and that's somebody dies, something happens there. Well, lawsuits start to fly for negligence or whatever the reason may be. They might go back on that last accident and go, all right, we're looking into fine-tooth comb, because that's what lawyers do. Yeah. They find that calibration either wasn't done or wasn't documented correctly. Well, whose responsibility was that to have that happen? To make sure that happened? Was it the insurance? Was it the body shop? Was it the shop that they sublet it to get all that ADOS calibrations done? And that's where it's going to start happening. And that's why we try to do exactly to the OEM specs. And then, there's certain things we do use different equipment. We use, there are other aftermarket equipments that help us do all cars rather than just the specific. And some of those are actually used at the dealerships too. So the equipment we use is used in a lot of dealerships.
Nice.
So
obviously you're the owner of Western Auto Care and Radiator Specialist in Ogden. Was this always your career? Was you always a shop owner?
No, I was not. And I guess I should specify. So the ADOS side is called All ADOS Calibrations.
Gotcha.
And we're in Ogden. So we're in the same building, just in the other part of the building, same location. So I started out, and I still am a helicopter pilot.
So was this a dream of yours? Like, I want to be a pilot?
Wanted to be a pilot since I think 5th or 6th grade. Great-grandpa was a pilot in World War II. My other grandpa was a navigator and crew chief in the Navy. And so, I just kind of kept going with it
but not
had
the
high interest.
Not the military route, though?
I started out that way. I really wanted to go into the Air Force Academy. And then I kind of switched directions around 21. I went and did a church mission, came back at 21 years old and started going down that route, and then redirected just for simplicity. I had a lot of my paperwork in, and I was getting all the the sponsors and the different things that you have to do for what I was wanting to do. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, of course.
Yeah.
Like any other pilot,
kids,
right?
Yeah, right.
So, but for one reason or another, just decided that was not going to be the route for me. Committing to another 4 years of going to the academy. It's quite the commitment. A lot of people don't realize that. And I had one of the recruiters take me aside and explain that to me. He's like, so this is the lifestyle, this is how it is, and then it was, well, no one explained that to me. I kind of understood it, right? And it wasn't something that was undoable, but I just decided that, I wanted to get through flight school and get done and get going and start flying. So,
where did you do your mission at?
England.
Oh,
yeah.
So you didn't get to learn a new language?
Yeah, I did. I actually had to. Yeah.
What'd you learn?
Scouse.
What is that?
It's Liverpoolian.
Oh, okay. Okay. So was there ever a conflict between military and church? Because I feel like being a fighter pilot, you're like, that's serious damage, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you're still, a lot of church members decided, to serve in the military and serve their country, and I don't think anything is there. I mean, you look at any part of the church, biblical and Book of Mormon wise, anyways, there's wars. I mean, that's just how people are. Good or bad, you still have to sadly stand up and defend yourself against, you don't have all information, right? So you're always just defending your side.
Yeah.
And what you're told your side is. So don't blame anybody for defending their country in any way. Kind of sad, those are our leaders that hold those responsibilities, and they'll have to see what we go from there.
How was serving your mission?
It was great.
You had a good experience?
Yeah, a lot of good experience. England's a definitely interesting place. Fun place, Food's a lot different than you think.
I heard it sucks.
The food?
Yeah. I heard it's like baked beans for breakfast.
Oh, beans and cheese on toast, man. Yeah. Once you get used to the British food, it's not too bad. I like fish and chips still. There's a good chip shop there in Ogden. Layton.
Oh, what is it?
Oh, I think it's a British Pantry is what it's called.
Oh, okay.
I might be wrong on that, but yeah, it's right next to the movie theater.
Best fish and chips I've ever had here locally was at Piper Down, which is a Scottish pub in downtown Salt Lake City.
Oh, I'm going to have to check that out.
Amazing.
Yeah, some of those Scottish pubs are, I would work on the road a lot too, and so I'll get to go to a lot of those, and sometimes that's the best food.
How was flight school?
Flight school is interesting. It's a business. Flight school is a business, 100%. So they want everybody they can to sign up and pay for flight school. So I started out the airplane route and then switched to the helicopter after I got my private license in the airplane, and went to the helicopter and loved it. More hands-on, airline, almost every airplane industry is using a heavy 3-axis autopilot. So you get things set up, and then you just kind of make sure the system's working right, and you hold the responsibility of making sure it is, and making sure you land and take off correctly, and you're not in the wrong spot. The helicopter industry, I really like the idea of flying low and having fun and being, stick and rudder skills.
Are you sick of podcasts that just interview people with the same questions and gossiping nonsense?
Are you tired of hearing about what's wrong with the world? Can you locate your nearest orphanage?
Who cooked the Last Supper?
R.I.P. Mr. Potato Head.
Seppuku Harakiri.
Where is Mavis Beacon?
This is Hos.
And this is host Beefy.
Listen to the Beans and Rice podcast.
Exclusively in Braille and all streaming platforms.
Patent pending.
No pukesters helping me to the left, and no pukesters helping me to the right. Didn't need them then, don't need them now. You are the ex-champion only.
Now this is the way, Tony and David, that you do the figure 4 leg lock.
You love wrestling?
Do you believe that Stone Cold Steve Austin is the greatest entertainer of all time?
Or maybe that Shawn Michaels is the sexiest man alive?
Or did you have a thing for Sonny from the years of 1994 to 1996 like I did?
Did you know Yokozuna isn't even Japanese?
If you could count the number of dimples on Rikishi's ass, this podcast is for you.
Follow us, the Figure 4 Podcast on Instagram, at Figure 4 Podcast. And check us out on YouTube.
Do it.
Tell your punk ass friends about us.
Yeah.
Hey, yo, you're probably listening to the Unrestricted Podcast with Dre Rawka.
We are?
No, they are.
Yeah, oh, right.
Oh, wow.
And I'm the real Ruby. You can catch me and Fonzie and the Funk. G Daddy Funk on Lake Talk 801 Podcast.
Yeah, but I think you have to come in more smoother, more funnier. Like, yeah, and they could catch us on the Lake Talk 801 Podcast.
Yeah, y'all can catch us on the Lake Talk 801.
Yeah, and be like, and yeah, man, hey, and they could catch people like me, the real Ruby, and people like you, Fonzie, and people like him, G Daddy Funk,
wow,
on
that's
the
a
Lake
lot of
Talk
people.
801. Who cares?
What did he say?
Huh?
I didn't hear him.
I don't know, but this probably should be the ad.
Are these on?
Catch a new episode every Monday on all streaming platforms. The Lake Talk 801. Tune in now.
Yeah, because you're doing the top and the back, right?
Yeah. So you got the rotor and the tail rotor, and so the pedals control the tail rotor pitch, and you got cyclic and a collective. So left, right, hand, and feet are always busy.
Oh my gosh.
That's funny. I'll go and, kids ask me that, we'll be somewhere and they'll be talking about flying. And I was like, how do you do it? It's like, well, I'll give you your first flight lesson, right? So I'll have them just start tapping their feet alternately, right, left, and then add in patting their head and then add in rubbing their stomach. And then, all right, now let's switch all that up. And that's kind of about what it's like. You have to disassociate and just get used to your hands and your feet doing everything how you need it to go, opposite of what you feel.
How was that first flight? Maybe both solo and with somebody.
It was awesome. It's a trip to hover that thing because it's just like the bat on the end of your finger. You're trying to sit there and go one direction or the other. It oscillates. It's you move one control, it affects the other controls. So it's a mess. It's when you're teaching people, your first job out of flight school, when you get done with flight school, is to be a flight instructor. It makes no sense whatsoever. So other than you haven't picked up a lot of bad habits and your knowledge of the regulations are probably strong, stronger than any other point. So you get your flight instructor's license and then you go and teach. And when you're teaching somebody how to hover, it's literally like a rodeo. So I was a flight instructor in Salem, Oregon, and they had a little restaurant out there at the ramp. And the ramp was a big open area in front of the, where you could park an airplane or, helicopters. That's where, aircraft parked. Well, really big area there in Salem, and most of the time the aircraft would park at different areas of the ramp. So we had this massive area in front of the restaurant that overlooked the ramp. And we go out there and you just have people come at lunch and just to watch the flight students trying to learn how to hover because it looks like a rodeo. I mean, they just about crashed the helicopter.
Oh, no.
You take control. All right, very good. You want to throw up now? Okay, no? Good. All right, we'll keep going.
So nonchalant too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I just think about aviation in general, it terrifies me.
I've always been the type of, no, let me just be on the ground. I'd rather road trip it than to get on any flight. But for somebody like you, I mean, how many hours do you do you have flight?
Oh, a little over 5,000. I'm not, since I went to EMS mostly as my main gig, I don't fly as much as I would. I used to fly about 600 to 800 hours a year.
And what does that look like? Is it just travel, or what are you doing? What are you doing in the helicopter?
So that was, I did timber spraying out in Oregon, Washington. So when they clear cut a wooded area for timber, this is all farms, right? Timber farms is what they're called. Different companies in different areas. So they'd cut it down a field. I say a field, but it would be on the mountainside, anywhere from about 45 acres to 120 acres in Oregon, Washington at the time. Laws change based off of how big or how small they can go. Mm-hmm. And they'll cut it down. We'll go back through in August, starting August, October. We do what's called a site prep. We spray it down with herbicides, and that gets rid of all the slash and the extra trees and the brush. And then they come through and plant it in January, February. And then once they plant it, we'll go back in the next 2 or 3 years sometimes, depending on the growth in that area, and we'll spray down the grass or the brush.
Do you control the spray, or is there somebody else controlling it?
No, so it's just you in the helicopter.
So how do you know where to spray?
So that's actually a really cool system because I used to use flaggers. So you'd have guys and chains would be spaced, swathed with, with X amount of feet apart, and they would just move up the mountainside, 45, 50 foot, increments. So that'd be one way. So you turn and you'd go back the other direction. Now it's in row crop, it's really easy. So you could just kind of find that row, and you could at least fly straight down that row. But in timber, it's on a mountain, so your topography's up, it's down, it's left, it's right. So those guys who used to do it and started doing all that, I mean, and it was too hard to get a guy going up, so they'd use puffs of smoke, or they would push out a piece of paper rag or something, an ejector, and at the end it would be like a toilet paper roll, similar, right? So you'd see a streamer go out, and it would hopefully launch into a tree on the edge of the field, and it's like that's where you ended, and then you turn around and do that's what we call it an ag turn, and you'd pull up, looks like a helicopter and a half pipe, pretty much, and you come up and then come back down and be on your next swath and looking for your next line. In the late 90s, I think it was the late 90s, early 2000s, DOD allowed a differential GPS, which is different for the GPSs that we were using at the time in civilian life, which allowed for a much more accurate GPS down to like a foot or so. So now we have a screen and a light bar, and that screen and light bar we can hit point A with a switch and mark a point B line. And in helicopter, we use A and B. In airplanes, they use a few more lines because they'll go do different fields instead of doing a turn like what we do. And you can literally just hit it, fly that line, look at your light bar, and watch that bar move over, the dots. And you're trying to be as accurate as you can, right? So we can get to 1-2 feet accuracy going back and forth. Pretty easy.
And how high are you off the ground?
Depends on the crop. So each chemical has a regulation, if you will. So I still go back and I do a corn and soybean contract back east, and we call it a run because it's a very small season, but everybody goes out there and tries to get it out because you can't employ somebody year round. So people from all over kind of sink back into the corn and area, and we just go like crazy at it. So, so you're 10 feet off the ground at most, or 10 feet off the top of the crop at most with corn.
And corn's what, about 12 feet high?
Yeah, maybe? most of the corn we're spraying, different varieties or different sizes. But
so you're maybe 50, 60 feet off the ground?
Well, probably like 20.
Oh my gosh.
Then you're doing some other stuff. I've done some row crop. I did cotton one year in California, and that was at night. And the guy kept wanting me to fly lower and lower because he was wanting to get all the chemical on the ground, right? And cotton doesn't grow very high. Yeah. And I came back and landed, and I had cotton in my boom.
Oh, man.
And the boom hangs just below this, just about skid length. So
What's a boom?
The spray boom. So the spray boom's on the front of the helicopter.
So you're spraying from the front.
So you're sitting in the yeah. So the spray is like a bar that's right in front of the aircraft. So as you're sitting in the cockpit, the spray boom's all out the side, 3/4 of the width of the boom. That's by law in most states. So you'd just be about there, and then the spray would come out, and you had to monitor your everything's at a different rate, 2 gallons per acre, 10 gallons per acre. So you calibrate based off of that. So yeah, you're coming down and you're just flying. And he kept lower. I need it lower. I'm like, all right, man. So getting lower and lower and lower and lower.
Are you on like a walkie?
So yeah,
okay,
yeah. He's using a radio to get a hold of me on it. And I'm like, all right, I'll get lower. And all right, I'll get lower. And
what's the cutoff though? What's the point where you're like, I can't go no lower, bro?
When you skid off the ground, right? No.
No.
Right. It's just based off of you.
Okay.
So I've got to picture myself practicing that run, because we were just getting because he was telling me how different cotton was. So I was just getting to that area. And so then he took a picture to show me. It's like, this is how low I want you. And it literally looks like I'm on the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. But it is up to the safety of the pilot. Okay. I knew up the ground. I knew where I was at. I knew I wasn't hitting the ground.
Yeah.
But the other part of that is there was lines in the field, so he wanted to make sure I could fly underneath the power lines at the end of the field to be able to come back in, because we can legally go underneath the power lines for agricultural purposes.
What?
Yeah.
So have you done that before?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But only for ag. I mean, any other industry, that's unless you're doing power line work with helicopters. And there's things for it, but when you're in the air, you can't see a wire. It doesn't show up like it is from the ground, right?
Yeah.
So from the ground, looking up, you can see it, but from the air, looking down on it, it's really hard to see. It meshes in with the ground, the terrain. So in some ways, it is a lot safer to fly under the line once you've checked out the line and you know that you're going to be clear of the line, and you fly that way.
Who's to say that line don't bounce once it gets hit by air?
So the line bounces. It also stretches in the sun.
Oh my
So as
goodness.
it gets warm, it sinks down.
Yeah.
So yeah, just because you flew under the line the night before doesn't mean you're going to fly under the line tonight.
Oh man, you're
so
insane,
if you have any question of it and whatsoever, you don't fly underneath the line.
Yeah.
You make sure that you're going to be able to clear the line and then come up and go out.
What season do you usually do your run for the corn and more agriculture stuff?
Usually I go back to Indiana, Ohio, that area, Iowa, right around the week after July 4th.
Oh, okay.
Or July 4th. It just depends on when they plant.
So you saying that, it makes me think about how much, I kind of have to use my words carefully here. It makes me think about the trouble that we've been having agriculture-wise with the farmers. So many farmers going on strike, right? And it really impacts guys like you too.
Yes and no. So it's the ag world is definitely interesting. The farmers are, most of it's turned into corporate farming. Mm. It's really hard for a one-off farmer to make it. Yeah. I mean, he's got to own thousands of acres of land to really own all the equipment he's got to own, and to go that way. I didn't really get too far into a lot of those guys because we're just there and in and out. We're trying to get as many acres done in that day as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's a window. Once that corn tassels, you've got 10 days to spray it.
Oh, wow.
So we are just hopping, going and going.
So at what point do you go into the medical route, the EMS route?
So I do that year round. So I take my vacation time and do trades to get all that 2 to 6 weeks. It's usually 6 weeks. About to do 6 weeks. So I do everything, and I take almost all my vacation. I do trades to get that 6 week window off. So it ends up working a lot. Yeah, just nonstop.
How often does and when we say EMS, are we talking about the life flight? Is kind of what we is that what you fly?
So we have to be careful because life flight is a company term. It's actually a branded term.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So will help us educate us on what you do versus what we see launch off.
So it's the same thing. HEMS. I don't work for life flight just so I'm not representing a company here on the medical side, but HEMS is kind of one of the terms they use. Air medical transport is it, but to call it, it's just easier to say like life flight, right?
Yeah.
Because they've done a very good job marketing in this area.
Absolutely.
And using the term, and it just rolls off your tongue, life flight. Oh, he needed to be life flighted.
It's like Kleenex.
Yeah.
We don't say tissue,
Exactly.
Kleenex.
You're right. Yep. Exactly. So
when I'm at the medical center in Murray, right on 53rd and State, we always see the helicopter, the red and white one, fly off the ground. Is that what you fly?
So I do fly a air medical helicopter, yes, and I think all of them in the area in the Ogden Salt Lake are red and white. So
that one is a little bit different. It's built. It looks like it has, and maybe I'm wrong. Does it just have the top propeller in the rear?
Yes.
Okay, because I thought there was two like in the middle, but I guess there's not.
So that's a Chinook. Usually, what most people look at see a Chinook, two main rotor blades, and that's more of a military. And there are some civilian Chinooks out there.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
how does one get a gig being a pilot for a medical hospital?
So really, it kind of comes down to, in all reality, there's a lot of openings. It's just getting the flight hours to get into the position. So that every gig that you go through has a certain hour requirement, one for the insurance and two for the experience. Right here in the Utah, Colorado, Wyoming range, Idaho range, New Mexico, every area has its own unique differences. But we're a mountain state. So the aircraft doesn't want to fly very well up here compared to sea level. So you don't get the same performances that you would with that same helicopter at a lower elevation. So everything is unique. So we the mountain areas, they like to see some mountain time, some high DA time is what they call it.
So how do you get, going from California where you're doing more crop stuff and coming here, how do you get comfortable flying again?
Doing different things. So it's a lot of fun doing the spraying, right? I mean, it literally does. It's like, that's the best way to say it. It's the difference between a road bike and going dirt biking, right? The road bike, this is nice, this is enjoyable. Oh, look, watch out for that deer. Okay, that car might hit me. Nope, it's good, we're cool. Dirt bike is, trying to get air, trying to maneuver the bike, trying to get the bike to perform how you want to do it. So that's kind of the same way. The EMS or the certain types of flying, like ag, is just a high active flying. I mean, you have to be looking down your next line. You have to be going. The different stuff would be the different things that I can't do, right? So then you got to slow down and kind of overplay the safety operation to get back into the trick. So instead of just coming in and going, oh, no, I got this. No, I got to fly by the rules that are set by this industry, which are different and at a higher standard because we're carrying passengers.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there a lot of chaos when you're flying a passenger from a patient from maybe one medical center or from an accident to the medical center? How much chaos is really going on in that helicopter? Do you hear it?
No, it's not really too much. I mean, we're on headsets, different things like that. It's really nice. The crews are really good. And they don't get to that level usually without being pretty much A-type. Well, there's not just A-type, but pretty stable people, right? When it comes to those things, you got to think those guys, just like the fire trucks. I mean, they're seeing terrible things every day. And I feel for them quite a bit. It's opened my eyes quite a bit. Those guys actually, what they go through when they start, some people will say, well, how do they get PTSD? It's like, you don't know. You have no idea. It's like when you come up on an accident with a kid that looks like your kid, or somebody's car that looks like your family's car. You still don't know. And you have to handle that, and those guys are really good. I was on a flight crew in back east, and our hospital got hit by a tornado.
Oh,
and
man.
The nurse on shift, her daughter lived in the tornado area that got hit. No cell phones were working at that point. She knew the tornado's alleyway took out her daughter's apartment. And she was on shift that night. And she did the whole entire shift. There's nobody else could come in because the majority of the crew lived in that tornado's alley.
Oh my goodness.
Or tornado's path. So nobody was available to come like relieve her. She just felt her daughter was okay, and she knew everybody needed help at that night. So they turn that on and they compartmentalize. And so it's really unique, and it's really, there's trauma, right? There's those guys go through, and those girls, they go through a lot, and the way they hold it together. So when we're on a flight, everybody's all business. They're putting together, they've got it together. The chaos isn't going on. There may be a mess going on with the patient. They've got it. They don't require the pilots to be medically trained for that reason. So we just stick to flying and keeping it compartmentalized.
How much traffic is in the air above us?
It just depends on the day. You got your weekend guys that own planes at local airports, and we used to call it going for $100 hamburgers. Probably more like $200 to $300 hamburgers now. Guys would get in their planes and they'd go up to the next airport, and stop there, get a burger, and come back, right? Because if you got a private license and you got an airplane, you have to fly to stay current. Mm-hmm. You got to fly to keep your skills up. It's a perishable skill. So that's what they'll go do. They'll go take their friends or their family, or they got a group of them, and they'll go and come up and down. So on those days, like Saturdays and Sundays, you're watching. It can get very busy. The radio traffic's really large, and in some areas, you don't even have to talk on the radio. So you got just people flying.
What?
Because it's not all controlled airspace up there.
That terrifies me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're nervous already about flying.
That terrifies me because I feel like air traffic control is the one saying, you're good, drop lower, go higher.
Right. So when you're in commercial, flying an airline, right, you're in almost always controlled airspace. So I can't go where the airliners are flying. So they fly over 18,000 feet. I have to have a flight plan and be in an appropriately rated aircraft that can go up to that altitude and fly at that altitude. So airlines, commercials, flight, that is all in regulated airspace. They're almost always tracked. They're always taken care of. You come into a big Bravo airspace, would be like Seattle, Salt Lake, that kind of place, and it's all controlled. So you can't get through here without talking to somebody.
One place here, and this is a podcast that's nation worldwide, right? So talking locally to Utah, and more specifically Roy, why is Roy such a hot place for airplane failure?
You've heard about the Bermuda Triangle.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not. You're right, because I remember growing up, there's always an airplane every few years that kind of goes down there in that area. You got a busy municipal airport right there, Ogden Airport. And there's a lot of training that goes on. There's a lot of airplanes that are in. Other places have the kind of a similar accident or, issue ratio. There's just, you just either don't hear about it because it's local, or there's fields that they go down into, or different things like that. But it's just actually part of aviation. Everything's based off of how many hours are flown to the incident ratio. So it's pretty standard. It's just there's a lot of hours flown out of that Ogden Airport.
Man, yeah, because I feel like it's every 3, 4, 5 years we have some type of incident. Not to say that a plane goes down, but there's an incident that happens in Roy.
Yeah.
And it terrifies me driving in between Ogden and Salt Lake City. We got to get through Roy, right? And my wife, she's from Ogden, right? She grew up there. And so anytime I go and visit my father-in-law and I come back, I'm always looking at the planes. They're super low. And the military base is right there too. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys terrify me.
Yep. Well, that runway comes over right on top of 1900, that approach. And then coming from the other end, it's over 31st. And the end, all the way on the far side, it's coming right over top of the freeway.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's the way they're designed, by prevailing winds, and our direction here in Utah is north and south, and our main roads are north and south, obviously too, for the mountain range. So
do you have you got to the point where you have your own helicopter, your own personal?
I used to want that, but the expense of owning one of those things, it costs X amount of hours. So like, say like you buy an aircraft, right? They tell you it costs you this much to run the aircraft per maintenance because everything's on a time life. Everything is on a calendar date that it runs out and expires or an hour rate. So you keep track of every hour you fly legally, right, on that aircraft. So say like the main rotor blades, each blade's a little bit different. Let's say it's 2,000 or 10,000 hour blade. They tell you that costs you X amount of dollars per hour. So every manufacturer will say, based off of all their parts, this is your maintenance program. You need to put away $250 or $300 per flight hour that you fly. So it gets really hard to own a helicopter in that way. Too many moving parts, too many parts to replace. It's a lot more cost efficient to just go to use an airplane. I would love to have an airplane one day. Love to live on an air park, actually. But where you can just have your hangar right out to the runway, right in behind your house. And just
there's a plane like it's here. Isn't there one in like America Fork or something?
I don't know if they built one there. I've seen some plans for a few more.
Yeah.
Where
people
there's
are
one
like,
in Heber, but I'm not sure.
People are literally driving their planes, like their cars, to go to McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen these. I'm like, man, that's crazy.
I would love to just land the helicopter at McDonald's one day, go up to the drive-thru and ask for something. But yeah, it'd be fun. But probably get arrested.
Yeah. Have you? Yeah, it's like Grand Theft Auto. Have you ever landed like on the freeway?
Yes.
How was that?
It's interesting because you can see all the backed up traffic. And do
you feel pressure with that?
No, not so much. Okay. No, I mean, we're there to get in and get out, and it's not really up to me how fast we get in and how fast we get out. So it's kind of interesting. It's to take off, and if you take off and then you have to go the direction that all the backed up traffic is, it's kind of like letting them know, like, hey, it's going to get better here soon, and hopefully it's something. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how far along that line behind them has gotten, depending on how long because we just get there towards the end usually, right?
Yeah.
Everything's been happening for X amount of time. We're hopping over there and getting into the freeway and then going from there.
What's the biggest misconception about pilots?
Oh, man. What would that be? It's hard, all right? I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes. And there's, the common joke of there's 100 people at a party, right? How do you know which one's the pilot?
How?
He'll tell you.
I'm a pilot.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, it gets, the misconception is we're not all guys. I guess that's the one thing. There are some more women coming in the industry. And we, I know a few, they do well.
Is it a male-driven industry, though?
It really is. I mean, it's predominantly male, right? Because you're on the road. I mean, let's be honest, certain jobs attract certain types of people. And, I mean, when you think about pilot, what do you think of first?
White male.
All right. What kind of pilot?
Young.
What do you think about doing what, though? What type of flying?
The commercial.
Right?
Yeah.
Commercial. Look at those guys used to be treated like celebrities in some back in the day. But they also pioneered a very risky industry, right? A lot of those guys back in the 40s and 30s when commercial airline was coming out or just, the transportation of people by air, and by the 50s and 60s, I mean, what do you think about they had a whole stereotype of flight attendants and pilots and what they looked like and how they acted and operated and the professionalism in which they did. That a lot of those guys were ex-military guys, they were guys who came back and from World War II and other guys who were breaking the industry and, all right, this is how we fly the aircraft. Our regulations, FAA regulations, a lot of times I like to remind us that those were written in blood. Those are written by accidents. Everything that's come up in those rules is because somebody found out or somebody made a mistake. So you kind of get into a very, I guess, masculine role at that point, willing to take the risk, life risk. It's why they show those funny YouTube videos of why women live longer than men.
Yeah.
Because, hey, let's see if we can do this.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was fun. Dude, you could have died. Yeah, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And that's kind of might be why that, we started down that path. But also, predominantly they were our ex-military pilots in the commercial world. They almost all came because it was expensive to train. It was, where did you go to get your flight training? Oh, well, in the airlines, it was almost, if you weren't a military guy, you weren't going to get in there for a long time, So I think that's why, but we're seeing a lot more, but it's not uncommon to have, female pilots and to assume they're the nurse. I think that kind of bugs them. You know what I mean?
So you obviously you're in the auto industry as well, but why not put a lot of effort into the aviation mechanical garage? Like, why don't you go that route?
That's a whole nother set of licenses.
Gotcha.
So AMP license. So I didn't go get my AMP for good reason. It's one of those things that when I was doing, the spraying and the utility, like I was also doing a lot of other fun stuff and some not so fun stuff like cherry drying, and that's no fun, but it needs to be done. And then
what's cherry drying?
You literally go up and dry cherries with a helicopter. Yeah.
From after it rains?
Yes.
So you just hover over?
You just hover going about 5 miles, 10 miles an hour up and down every other road, so the water gets on the cherry stem and then suck into it and split the cherry.
Oh.
And that cherry business up in Oregon, Washington is multi-million-dollar business. They may only have one good crop every so many years, and that one good crop pays for all the other years.
Wow.
So they will, if it rains, you got to be up there. And so you just sit there at the helicopter. A lot of times you get new pilots who are really looking for hours because it's super boring, Oh, good. I'm going to get up and just go up and down the rows like a lawnmower and do. And guys literally, I've heard of guys falling asleep doing it.
Oh, no.
I think guys just say it, but
yeah.
But yeah, you're only 10 feet off the top of the tree. And you're going in and getting that stem off and getting that water out of that stem. So
there has to be a better way, a less expensive way.
Well, because you don't need it all the time.
Gotcha.
So some of the field
in Oregon,
well, you don't. Well, so not if they already know they have a bad crop.
Oh, okay.
They're not going to pay for that or have them sitting up there because you literally have the helicopter and you can only do about 160 to 200 acres as that helicopter before it's too late. So per every helicopter is X amount of acres they've kind of figured out for.
Gotcha.
So you just go up and sit. So they pay you to sit there until they need you, and then they pay you extra for once you fly. So,
man, the life of a pilot.
But Christmas trees are a heck of a lot of fun.
What do you do with that?
So they have them in piles, right? So, and this is the helicopter world is a unique world. There's about a bazillion different things that you can do with a helicopter and what what you see and what you don't see. So they'll have them all piled up by sizes in a Christmas tree farm. And they've done the math. They have found out that it takes more expense or loss of revenue by making truck rows through their Christmas tree farms and then having them all planted and just piling them up and having a helicopter fly out and grabbing the stack, the pile that's already cut and put together and kind of roped, and then bringing them back to to another pile to which they're going to go ahead and load them into a truck and put their netting around them and everything. So the farmer sits there with a stopwatch when you're new, or if he's the first of the year, just to make sure you're up to standard. So he expects you to be from the pile to the guy in the little orange hat who attaches the rope to your hook that's hanging on the bottom of your helicopter about 50 feet. Pick up that other extra 50 feet of line and that 600 to 800 pounds of trees back to the pile in a minute to 45 seconds.
Holy moly.
And you're just hanging out the side of the helicopter the entire time. Your head's down because if you bring it out, it's kind of a weird setup. You're in back, your neck's all tweaked out. But you fly by 6 to 8 hours a day doing that. Pretty easy. And
have you ever done lineman work?
For power lines?
Yeah.
No, those guys are cool too. I would love to.
You got to meet my man Junior. So
Yep.
I have a good friend Junior. He lives in not Syracuse. Is it West Haven?
Yep.
West Haven. He lives in West Haven. This dude decades as a power guy, lineman. And I didn't know I thought a lineman was a football player, right? I thought it was a football position.
Yeah.
And so we started a podcast called The 27th Hour because this guy's just go. He reminds me of you. he tell me all these stories about power lines and about linemen and about the work. And he told me about how he flew a helicopter to set in new power lines, and he had to be he was hanging from a line with the helicopter to anchor in this power line and all this stuff. So hearing your story and hearing a lot about you, I'm like, man, this guy sounds like Junior.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Those guys have a lot of control, right? So they're coming in, and they use MD-500s most of the time because of the stability of that aircraft. And they'll come in and they'll sink down and then move underneath the wire while getting the guy over to the line to get hooked up. And then, oh man, it's nuts. And those are the same guys a lot of times that either have done or do the saw cutting down the side of the power lines with the big power saws.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I got to get you and Junior on a podcast together.
It's a pretty good kick in the pants. I mean, there's a whole industry out there of different things that you just don't think aircraft can do. And that's kind of the hard part, right, is the safety margin between each one, right? So some of the EMS guys, they think I'm nuts. They're like, oh, you and your cowboy stuff. It's a job that has to be done, and it can be done safely. It just assumes a lot more risk, right? Versus the nice part about the airline industry is the same way in EMS industry. You're carrying passengers, a whole different mindset of how you fly, how the aircrafts, they all have to maintain maintenance operation. But ours in the EMS world, almost all the helicopters are looked at and overlooked at, and I don't overlooked at. They're looked at all the time. Just because nothing needs to be done maintenance wise doesn't mean a mechanic's not out there checking it out and seeing if there is.
What does a day in an EMS pilot, what does it look like for you? Like from the time you wake up to the time you close out the shift?
Every day starts with, you got to pre-flight the aircraft, make sure everything's good. A lot of times you have to do a fuel sample check of the fuel system or the fuel farm, make sure there's no contamination. You have to have a briefing with the crew. You have to have a briefing with an operational control center. You're looking over the weather, and you're just verifying that what your day looks like. You got to have a briefing, your maintenance briefing, make sure you don't have any maintenance coming up that day. And then we're just really waiting around for a call. So while you're waiting around for a call, there is some flexibility in what you can do. You have to be able to respond and be to the aircraft within X amount of time. And so then you are sitting there and they expect you to be up and, you're getting paid, right? So whether that means each program is different, hey, we've got things we need you to do. You need to do legally X amount of training, X amount of continuing education. So we're going to have you do that. Well, yeah, you're getting paid to do that. We also need the helicopter washed. Well, that's the mechanic's job. Oh, that's the pilot job. So some things go back and forth. It really doesn't matter. It's got something in the day to do. The hard part's the night shift, right? Because nobody wants to go out in the middle of the night and do, wash a helicopter. So almost all our guys, most bases, we'll do that in the day. So yeah, you want to make sure you keep those together, and then you are having to be ready to take a flight at any moment's notice. So because of that, there's a certain amount of hurry up and wait. So if you have to go to the bathroom, you go. You don't, I'll hold it. It's like, no, you're going to be ready so you don't go, because there's usually only one bathroom.
Yeah.
And all three of you have to go at the same time when there's a call. It's just kind of ridiculous. You're not going to make, we've got to get out the door. So everybody is situated. You eat, make sure your blood sugar levels are there. And then, some of the crews are 24-hour shifts on the medical side. So a safety nap. If you need a nap while you're waiting for calls, you take it. Because it is, you might get that call, bam, bam, bam. And it asks a lot of you, right? That's going to ask a lot of you emotionally. It's going to ask a little bit out of you physically, depending on where it's at or what's going on. And, if you're flying into, it could be a hard spot to get to. So, it could test your skills a little bit too. So it's always funny. It's the same way when you start as a flight instructor, start learning how to be a pilot or flight school. It's all, everybody starts off, excited, and they come home and then they take a nap.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, it was so draining. I don't know why I'm so tired. All I did was a 2-hour lesson and only flew for like a 0.8, but I can hardly keep my eyes open. And you get a accustomed to it, and then it's just like any exercise, right? Your mental ability to handle it is a lot better. But so they want you rested. You need to be able to go. So it can accompany a lot. You can watch a show. You got TVs. So they don't keep you just straight, keep you busy. You need to keep your mind able to go.
Where are you guys doing all this at? Is like, obviously there's the helicopter on the tarmac, on the launch pad. But is there a certain area inside the hospital that you guys are hanging out in?
Nope. No, every base or location or program, that's the best way to say it is because there's lots of different companies out there that do this. So everybody's got their own system. Some places are at an airport. It's not even at a hospital. They're at a community base, so they'll sit at the airport, and their digs might be inside the hangar. They might have a double wide, and their helicopter's ready to be pulled right out of the hangar, or it's sitting on a pad ready to go right off the bat, right? So they need to get ready for fuel. You got to do a fuel planning. You got to make sure your weather's good. You got to make sure your performance is good. So you're, in other places might be a room in the hospital. You might be sitting right there in the ER. They had some rooms segmented off where you to be at. And then some bases are not as, they're more rural. So you might have a response time of 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So you might be down the street kind of deal because your response time is different based off of your requirements.
Gotcha. Have you ever done the search and rescue?
We're not allowed to do search and rescue with the EMS operation.
Gotcha.
That's a different FAA requirement. So I think there's a few in the U.S. that are allowed, but we do what's called search and assist. So we're able to get launched, go help, and almost every company gets that certification or added on and goes through the process through the FAA to make sure that they're within their operational controls to do those kind of flights.
Was there you didn't have the opportunity? Well, you had the opportunity, but you didn't take the opportunity to go the military route. Mm-hmm. But why not go the sheriff route with the helicopter?
That's another option to go, and a lot of guys do end up going that direction because there's a lot different types of flight that you get to do, and it kind of opens you up to have to do those search and rescues, right? And it just comes down to where you want to live. Gotcha. And I mean that's the best part about aviation. A lot of times you can work where you have to and live where you want to. So there's a lot of guys that'll do because a lot of programs do a 7 on, 7 off. So you might live a state away, drive to your 7 on, come back into your 7 off. So that's where it's just based off of where you want to be.
Gotcha. We're at an hour and 10 minutes. I still have a lot of questions for you. But one thing that when you talk about helicopters, one thing that always comes to mind to me is Kobe's situation. Kobe Bryant. And obviously we know the helicopter crashed into a hillside or a mountainside. And I don't know how familiar you are with the story, but how likely is that? I shouldn't even say likely, but should that have been prevented in that situation?
Yes and no, right? It was put down as pilot error. So yes, pilot error for flying in that type of weather, right? And this is the problem with all industries. We all get pressured to do our job, and a lot of times to do our job unsafely, just to get the job done, especially when you get into any industry that has a physical activity to it, right? There's guys on the construction world that, hey, that's not safe. And if OSHA was out here, we wouldn't be doing this. But they do it because if not, how many hours are they going to be behind? Or it's, they do the risk, right? And they choose that risk. The reason why pilots in that industry get caught in rough situations is because you're flying high stars, high celebrities, high influential people. And a lot of times those people kind of think they dictate more than they should. Hey, I'm paying you to fly. So when I tell you to fly, we're flying. Well, the weather's not great for us to fly. Well, is it illegal for you to fly in this weather? I mean, not technically illegal to fly in this weather because right here it's not. I don't know, 5 miles down the road where I can't see and there's nothing, there's no reports for me. But what happens when we get there? Well, can I turn around and come back? Well, maybe not. Now you might be locked in because now behind you is worse than what's in front of you, right? So we get it's called scud running. And it's a bad situation that you can get into, especially as a helicopter pilot, because airplane guys can get in it too, but we're more to flying at a lower altitude and getting to point A to point B. So you start off and you might be legal. And the air, the clouds, the fog gets thicker and thicker. We are required through visual flight rules to maintain ability to see where we need to land, if we needed to land in emergency, right? And certain airspace, we have to have certain visual fields of requirements as well. So we have to be able to see so far in front of us, 1, 3, 5 miles. We have to have a cloud clearance as well. And in some airspaces, we just have to stay clear of clouds and be able to see and avoid. And I haven't looked at what his airspace was, mostly because I don't want to be kind of caught in the middle of that discussion. But the scud running part is when you start, and then that weather starts creeping up on you, and you kind of think, all right, I'll just keep going. I'll slow down. Okay, I'll slow down. I'll come lower. I'll slow down and go lower. Slow down and go lower. And eventually, I mean, you might be, I've seen it here. I've seen a helicopter flying 50 feet above the freeway.
Oh, wow.
Like, what are you doing? You know, and it's bad weather. And that's just not smart, right? Because now where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You're going to land on the freeway? You can't see the power lines because there's power lines above 50 feet, and the high tension lines can get get higher. There's poles, there's towers, there's antennas. So you kind of get into a problem there. So what he was doing was, following the same route he's always done. And that's the other problem. When you get used to doing the same spot, you get a complacency. Oh, I know that area. Yeah, I'll just follow the road to this point. And then I know this part's a little bit of a problem. We have the problem right here at the Bountiful area, because that weather can sometimes push and block in. So we can fly almost all the way up to Bountiful, but I can't get to the hospitals on the other side legally. But I can get to this area, and then it just pushes and bunches up. And then I got Salt Lake, and then there's no way for me to fly an airplane or helicopter in general aviation sense within visual flight rules, right, to get there. So, yeah, we kind of get into that point where we push it. Oh, just keep going. And that's kind of what happened. He just kept pushing it. So he made a mistake, and he should have just told, and it's easier said than done. Are you guys going to tell Kobe Bryant? Nope, not flying today. Oh, we're turning around. My daughter had a game. If you'd have told me this 2 hours ago, we would have drove. You know what I mean? So, and so that's the problem, is it's just there's a high-pressure environment to get these type of folks to where they're paying you to get them. And then there's also the implication that if you don't say, and you say no, well, okay. Yeah, I'll just choose a different pilot next time, right? Or I'll hire another guy who's willing to take more risks.
Yeah, tough situation, man. Both sides. But I'm glad that I got to hear it from a pilot and hear kind of how that whole thing works, man. You gotta. I mean, we didn't even scratch the surface on all the things that you got going on.
Sorry about that.
No,
man.
you're good. You're good.
That's the other bad part about pilots. We love to. We'll talk about flying all day long, man.
Well, we'll have to do a part 2.
Okay.
How about that?
Sounds good.
What'd you think about this, man?
I like it. This is awesome. The headphones actually makes it a little easier to understand that, whether volume I'm speaking at and everything. So it's pretty cool. I like because I always, when you're speaking across the table, you don't know where your volume's at, where you're at, your tone, your cadence.
Inflections, all that. Cool, Jake. Well, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Where can we find the shop? Any other services that you provide? Go ahead. Yep. Shout out all your businesses.
All right. So we have Western Auto Care and Radiator Specialties there on 3550 in Pennsylvania Avenue in Ogden. We are a full auto care shop, and we are also a radiator specialty shop. So we can clean, service, and repair and rebuild radiators of mostly the brass copper ratio. A lot easier to do, but we can play around with some of the aluminum stuff. The other thing is we do clean and lining of fuel tanks for all your motorcycle tanks and your car tanks and different things that way. And we also are all ADAS calibration center. So that's the other name of the other company. We are able to do all your radars, LiDAR, ultrasonic sensors, your surround views, your backup cameras, all that fun stuff. So if you're having a problem with those working or they're not working like you thought they used to work, bring them by, and we'll do that and put it through that center as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, full service, man. They really took care of me, so they'll take care of you. Plus, walking through that shop, like you showed me the radiator side of things. I'm like, man, there's a lot to it.
Oh yeah.
And you showed me a new tool that you got in that back area.
So we're hoping to be doing tubes and hoses a lot different. So one of the other services that used to be a really normal thing to get was get your AC lines and your transmission lines and your brake lines bent. Especially if you got a custom application or an application that you can't get OEM parts for. So we just bought a machine. We got to do some training. I got to send a guy down to Texas to do that. And we're hoping to be able to make all those lines on the spot, and hopefully by spring or summer, and be good to go there.
Awesome. Can people hire you to be a pilot for them?
Yes.
But you don't want to?
I have to make sure, one, it's not a conflict of interest. But if you got a helicopter and you just need a pilot to come out and do some stuff, give me enough notice. I got to make sure, one, that I'm not putting myself in a spot, which requires, anytime you hire a pilot, we do need to go through and make sure the aircraft is legal. Yeah. Right. So we want to have enough time to go through the maintenance logs and make sure all the required repairs and ADs and, stuff is kept up with.
Do you allow people to jump out of your helicopter?
So I can't on mine. I have a buddy who used to do that, and it was funny. He ended up having the FAA show up at his place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was like, why? Like, we had the permits.
Yeah.
But that guy didn't jump off with a parachute.
What?
He jumped into a lake.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was a river, really, but one of those, one of those big rivers. Mm-hmm. Not like the rivers we have here, but one you water ski on and you do all the boating on.
My cousin, he's a professional skydiver, and he did his first helicopter jump. It was at it was in Utah County, I want to say American Fork Airport, and he was like, "Do you want to go up in a helicopter with me?" I was like, "No, I don't. No, thank you." But his mom, my aunt, she went up with him. And to see this thing, I think they were at, I want to say 10,000 feet. I could be wrong, but I think it was around that height. And to see them just go up in a helicopter and then jump right out, I was like, oh my goodness. It was different than an airplane, right? Yep. Because that helicopter wasn't going nowhere. And you could literally just see them hop out. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so you got a whole different fall experience from a helicopter. An airplane, you're already moving. So when you jump out, you already are up to a certain speed, right? So when you jump out of a helicopter, it can almost be at hover height 0 or near 0. Yeah. Right? And then you're going to jump out and you're going to get that whole gut up your stomach kind of feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun. Thank you.
Yeah. That, and have you ever seen them do pig hunting?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Hog hunting, yeah. Yep. Off of a helicopter.
Yep.
Hovering 50 feet and shooting hogs.
Yep. That's a kick in the pants.
Have you done it?
No, but I got asked to do a flight for that down in Texas one year and go do it for 2 or 3 weeks, but I ended up having a contract to go spraying, so I had to go do that.
Gotcha.
I wish I would have done it because it's a fun gig.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just don't shoot the helicopter.
So a lot of times they have little safety things to keep that from happening, either so you don't pull your gun up to a certain height.
Oh, okay.
I've been told. Never been on one, but it would make sense because that would be just a bad way to go.
You can land a helicopter without the tail, right?
So the tail is a balance issue as well. So if you lose the tail rotor, I worked for a guy who lost the tail rotor gearbox when he was doing Christmas trees one year. And so the tail rotor gearbox actually broke off and fell down. The shaft broke everything. It just twisted itself right off, went right down to the ground. And because of that, you turn into a lawn dart now. Because all that weight, even though might be, let's say 10, 14 pounds, it's a fulcrum.
Yeah.
We're based off of a CG, a balance load. So you take that longest distance out, which, you can't compensate for with that thing gone. So you're a lawn dart.
Oh, my God. Did he survive?
He did. He was only 50 feet in the air when it happened.
Oh.
Broke his back.
Oh, man.
But, yeah, he was fine. He healed from it, was walking, all that kind of stuff. So it didn't break his back in a bad way, but it just compression and everything. So, yeah.
What's next for you, man? Well, I mean, you got a lot of things going on. We didn't even talk about the FedEx. Are you still doing the FedEx stuff?
Still, so I'm a contractor for FedEx as well. So contracted for 3 zip codes right now.
Gotcha.
Yep, still doing that. That one's actually, that's a pretty interesting field as well. But that one I'm I think a little bit more legal things of what I can and cannot say on that one.
Gotcha.
Just because I am a contractor.
Yeah.
Versus a FedEx employee. So. But yeah, no, I'd like to scale up the ADOS and the mechanic side. That's the way I'd like to go. I'm really interested in the whole, additive manufacturing industry and things like that. But
what's that mean?
The CNC 3D printing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, additive, subtractive, and subtractive manufacturing.
What would you print?
I'd love to print radiators, man.
Gotcha.
I just don't think there's at this point in the way they are, they're just not a. The expense to do so would be, you wouldn't be able to keep up. No way to produce them at the same rate.
Are they being printed right now?
There are some people who have come up with them, yes, and they printed off some 3D printers as a point of impact. There's an aircraft, one in a military application for preheating the fuel in cold weather environments at the same time of cooling the oils. So it's but it can only be made through a 3D printed process.
Do you live in a book? Because I feel like with all this stuff, you have to keep on studying and understanding science.
I don't. My wife's funny because my wife and my son and my daughter, they all are book readers all the time, right? And they give me crap because I don't read books in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
I'm not a big novel guy, but I love just reading and deep diving into stuff, and then I'll go down this road, and my wife is very patient about it. But yeah, I'll get interest, dive down it for a long time, go a deep dive, and then come back out, and they're like, "Oh, that was cool. Now, how can I use that to make money or start a business?" And then that's when she gets frustrated.
So what is your passion? What's Jake's passion?
Oh man, that's the hard part. I like doing things and kind of getting a goal and succeeding at the goal, right? Mm-hmm. Flying is absolutely. I love flying. That's been my thing since I was a little kid. I've always wanted to fly. So that is my passion. I would love to be able to afford an airplane so I can just go flying all the time, but that's an expense that requires making more money to make that happen, right? And then at that point, do you have time to go fly that aircraft and go do that kind of thing? So I do like staying busy and I like working. I guess one of those odd guys that I do enjoy just working and finding ways to make a goal and succeed at it. So
I hear you, man. Being a workaholic's not a bad thing.
No, well, it depends on who you ask, but it can be. I mean, I've got a buddy that's gone did the same thing, right? As far as he deep dived and just working, and now he's made the success. But it seemed like he made more success when he backed back down and started. The biggest difference I would say, I think, when he started noticing was when he got a coach to help him, and then not a life coach, but more of a business style coach, right? Mm-hmm. In the business that he's in, and then balanced out when he's home. You know, this is where I'm at when I'm here, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I think that helped balance him out to the point where he wasn't fatigued all the time, right? Because if you're if you're always working and you're always finding something, I mean, it is the phone doesn't stop, the ideas don't stop, and how you want to improve things, you can't just turn that off, right? So when people are calling in and doing different things, I am trying to get to that point where at a certain time when I'm with my family, I try not to answer my phone. Mm-hmm. It's not always the case, right? You do have to be in this, if you're going to be in this kind of an industry where you're trying to get things going in your life in that direction, entrepreneurial-wise, business-wise, you can't just cut it off, the phone off, but to be able to sit down and try to make it happen and try to be there when you're there. You know, that's the biggest thing. I used to try to say it's about the quality. You can have quality or quantity. Mm-hmm. You know, some people like quantity, and that's totally fine. And some people like a balance, and some people just want the quality. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's where it gets hard. So I try to coach my kids' baseball team, And so I'll just take off from work or from the shop or do different things like that. And it's funny because you have employees that some of them get it, and other employees that, or former employees that don't get it. It's like, well, you should be here. Like, dude, I'm here more than you know. Just because I'm not here doesn't mean that I'm not doing something related to the business, or that doesn't stop for me. Well, you only here 30 hours this week. You only saw me for 30 hours this week.
Yeah.
But for that 30 hours, I was doing this here that you saw me. I was spending this time at home. When I put my wife and my kid to sleep, because I don't sleep very much, I try to do a lot of my stuff after they're in bed. So
you don't need to explain that, though.
Yeah.
You don't need to.
No, you don't. But they don't get it, right? They don't see the cost of success or the cost of not even success yet, because success is, I don't feel like I've got to that level where I couldn't call it a complete success.
It's subjective.
Yeah. I want to call it success when it's self-running. When I can only be there 10 to 15 hours a week and I've got everybody and all the people in place to make my businesses work, that's my success that I'm going for.
What is, you talked about being an entrepreneur. What is the biggest challenge in your entrepreneurship right now?
Probably just the misunderstanding of what it takes, right? The biggest challenge is being able to get to everything. You don't know. That's the worst part. There's books, there's people, but there's the majority of people will tell you one thing and then the other, right? So you can get an entrepreneur that tells you, oh, do it this way. Or another business guy says, oh, no, you want to do it this way. Well, that worked for that guy. That worked for that guy. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because our brains are all wired different to start with. We don't add stress to our lives because we're normal. You know what I mean? We add stress to our lives because sometimes it's the only way to make the ideas stop.
Yeah.
Make it so you can feel like you're doing something with the way your brain's just constantly hitting the night. I don't fall asleep till 2 or 3 o'clock every night. And it sucks because it's not something I want. And it's funny because people, well, you just lay down and close your eyes. Oh, that's how it works?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wait, let me try that. No, then I'm up till 5 because that doesn't work for me. I got to do something till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And then when I feel it, all right, I'm going to go to sleep,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of I think that's the biggest misconception or the hardest part is doing what works for you while trying to make it work for the people around you, right? I guess that's my biggest problem right now is trying to find that, trying to make it work for me, trying to make it work for my kids, trying to make it work for my wife in a way that they don't feel like I'm losing them or choosing one thing over them while trying to create something over here for the whole situation.
Yeah. I hear you, man. It doesn't get any easier there. But
yeah.
Man, Jake, I really appreciate your time, man.
Hey, thank you.
Hopefully the people appreciated this episode, man. You gave us a lot, man. The aviation part of your story is just phenomenal, man. It's something that a lot of people don't realize, and even the business part of this whole thing is really eye-opening, and I appreciate you, man. I don't think you're a social media guy. Do you have any socials you want to plug?
Oh, we've got a Facebook account, and that's about it. That's one thing I got to do a lot better is one, because I also want to do educational, because the ADOS thing, people just don't know what it can do for you or how to really function it correctly. So I want to create a social media for that. But again, that's the other part. It's adding one more thing that you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
Not have to do, but makes everything work. But the hours in the day just tick by, and
absolutely.
So,
quick question: do you have do you get GoPro footage of your flights? Is that legal? Can you?
No. A lot of times it's not.
Okay.
Right. We can't have anything that can determine what patient was on board. I can't post anything that would tell who I fly for.
Gotcha.
In such a way on a social media account. So
gotcha. I'm just thinking it'd be a really cool day in the life of a pilot, even if it's the agriculture part of it. Like I always find those type of pieces of content fascinating on YouTube.
I did do one of those 360 YouTubes or GoPros.
Yeah.
When I went spraying last year, and so So you could actually follow it and turn it around and do different things and see it. It was kind of, I should post that, but I tried to post it on YouTube, but I guess that requires a lot of data to upload, and they only would let me do like a 20-second segment.
Gotcha.
And I should do that so I can do a whole thing because it is different.
Yeah.
Have you ever done the VR with the?
I've never done it before.
Oh,
I've
man.
seen it, but I've never done it.
So there's a VR guy, and he does it with the Red Bull helicopter, the stunt helicopter, right? And I had a guy, the first time I ever had the VR guy, one of my nurses put it on my head. He goes, "Oh, you gotta check this out." I was like, "All right." He puts it on, and it's the YouTube, the guy doing the Red Bull, all the tricks and stuff. But the camera doesn't sync with the pilot. So I mean, I literally end up, and I don't get motion sickness, you know, because I'm, it's just got a lot of exercises and not being that way, and that literally put me on my floor. I'm like, no, dude, I gotta sit down. Why would you? How could anybody stand up with this? Because you don't know which way's up or down at that point, or start leaning and doing different things like. So yeah, there are a few of those out there, but I think it'd be a lot more fun to set it with the pilot eyes kind of direction, so you can look left and right, but you're seeing it at the angle the pilot sees all the movements going around.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Might not get so sick, but
what's the website? Western.
So we have 2 different websites. We've got westernradiator.com and we have alladoscalibrations.com.
Boom. All the information you need is on those websites. Jake, again, I've been trying to end this thing for the last 15 minutes.
Sorry.
No, it's not you. It's me because I have more questions, right? But definitely go check out Jake and everything that he has going on those websites. If you're in the Ogden City area, you got to go check out Western Auto Care and Radiator Specialists. They'll really take care of you. And, of course, the ADOS services as well. Appreciate you, my brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Remember, you can go on to allrock.com. That's ALLRAWK.com. If you want to make a monetary donation to this show, you can buy a hoodie, t-shirt. I'm going to be working on some candles pretty soon here.
Ooh.
I'm going to get into the candle industry.
What's the scent?
So me personally, I'm a seasonal guy. So I like the chais. I like the pines. I like the floral, tropical. So just to go with the seasons, right? Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to be dabbling into that.
So are you going to come up, how do you find your own scents? Or do you have somebody make them, or are you going to like mix them?
Oils. Yeah, just oils and then mix them into the candle, into the wax, right? Nice. But it's very scientific, right? You don't want to burn off the smell. You got to have the right amount, right? Because you don't want to burn it.
You know what would be fun? Can we make some candles that have coolant?
Coolant smell?
Yeah, like
do you like the coolant smell?
No, but it'd just be fun to have them. Like just put them up there as a novelty thing, right? Yeah. Do a coolant smell, do a burnt hydraulic oil smell.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
Gear lube smell. Just something like when somebody comes in, wait, what?
Yeah.
And you're gonna sell like 1 or 2, right? For somebody who wants it as a gag gift.
Yeah, just burnt oil.
That would be hilarious.
All right. Have the day you deserve. Always protect your light. We're out. Peace. What'd you have for breakfast?
NOS.
Just NOS energy.
Straight NOS, man. Just go for it. This is usually a good round of sugar to start the day, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the good thing about the Bucked Up. 0 sugar, 0 sodium. I'm down 49 pounds since July.
Nice, man.
And a lot of that comes from watching the sugars and whatnot. So.
Oh yeah, it makes a difference.